Hey. So I am glad to welcome you to the world of Blenderism again. In this episode I want to show you the process of creating an image, according to the example that was created by artificial intelligence. First, let's add a reference to the scene so that we can navigate by it. It looks like this. Let's place it at an angle of 90 degrees to the y-axis and increase its size a little. Oops, I accidentally forgot to turn on the display of keys for you again. First, let's place the reference so that the bottle of perfume supposedly stands on the x and y axis. For convenience, you can lower the opacity a little. Place the cube opposite the reference and begin to repeat the shapes of the bottle. Drag the cube in height, and then in edit mode select the upper face and press I and do insert. Then slightly raise the small face that turned out along the z-axis. Okay, now let's set up the camera so that in the window on the left at the top I can see the result in render mode. And set the desired lens size 1.200 by 1.800 pixels. Now in edit mode add two loop cuts along the y-axis and along the x-axis. We need this to make the neck of the bottle. Now press the number 7 on the numpad and go to the top view, select the vertices that we got and apply to them add and loop tools and immediately go to the small menu on the left below to slightly correct the degrees. Now we need to dissolve the 4 vertices that are in the center. Who gives us the opportunity to use insert, do it twice. We need to make sure that we have the desired diameter of the neck of the bottle. Delete the round central face. Now using the combination Shift-D duplicate the object and reduce it. From it we will make the inner part of the bottle. So we need to go to transparency mode using Alt-Z and arrange the vertices in such a way as to repeat the shape of the inner part of the bottle. Also we need to add several edge loops and align their vertex along the z-axis. With their help we create the geometry we need. Let's add another edge loops in center and reduce them in diameter. So good, when the inside of the bottle is ready, let's copy it, rename it to water and hide it for now. We will use this object to create water inside the bottle. And so we can go back to the walls of the bottle. The thing is that the diameter of the inner wall is smaller than the outer ones, so we need to go to the top view and reduce the diameter of the upper neck to the size of the lower one. Then press Alt-Shift select both edge loops and press the right mouse button where we select Bridge Edge Loops. Next I want to add a bevel to the outside of the bottle. Press Shift-G and select Face Angles and thus we have most of the edges selected. We can of course use the menu below to increase the threshold, but I will select the rest manually. One thing I will check is that everything is selected correctly, both methods work. And now we can press Ctrl-B to make bevels. This time we will use the menu and adjust the parameters a little to get a smooth result. Well, when we are ready we can add a subdivision surface, with the number of divisions 2 and a shade smooth. And we have to refine the neck a little, or rather add several edge loops to enhance the geometry, on the inner and outer parts. And we can move on to the second part of the neck. Or rather, we need to create elements of the tube with which the perfume is sprayed. A cylinder with 32 vertices will help us create it. Add it to the scene, raise it to the level of the neck, adjust the diameter. After which the upper and lower faces of the cylinder must be inserted. Then apply bridge face. After which we get a kind of washer. Now we need to add edge loops outside and inside to enhance the geometry. And also select edges and press Ctrl B to make a bevel. Add a few more edge loops and apply shade smooth. That's all, the first element is ready. Now we can copy this washer and change its shape a little in order to make the inner part of this element. It will be a kind of adapter for the tube. In order to create the tube we need to add a Bezier curve and place it in the way it will be in the future. As far as I know it should almost reach the bottom of the bottle to draw in the perfume. So in the editing mode we place the vertices in this way opposite the reference. We try our best to achieve the final result, since it will be more difficult to bend the tube further because we will need to transform it into a mesh. Now we can go to the curve settings, find the geometry tab and set the depth of our curve. I leave the resolution at 4 and I think there is no point in raising it higher. Now we are ready to convert our curve to a mesh. But if you look at our tube from above, you can see that we do not have enough thickness. To fix this, you need to use a modifier with Solidify. Do not forget to check the box next to even thickness. Add edge loops at the top and bottom of the tube to strengthen the geometry. After which we can apply the modifier. Now we can once again make sure that the geometry and shape of the tube are correct, after which you can add subdivision surface and shade smooth. And on this we can consider that our tube is finished. Let's move on to creating the main part of the cap. We add another cylinder to the scene. In the editing mode we press the combination GZ1, which means that we will raise the cylinder 1 up, and the center of the geometry will be at the bottom of the cylinder. So we place our cylinder opposite the reference and adjust the dimensions. Go into edit mode and start creating topology for our cap. For the upper and lower faces, use insert several times. Next, select the corner edges and use the Ctrl B combination to make a bevel. Also use Ctrl R to make edge loops in the center. Now add another edge loop and use Ctrl plus B to split it into two. Adjust the amount of loop cuts using the mouse wheel. Then press the ES key combination and press face and inside. After which we need to add edge loops to strengthen the topology. After we have made sure that the number of edge loops is sufficient and they are in their places, then we apply shade smooth and subdivision surface to our object. Now we can make the top of the cap. Let's move the 3D cursor a little closer for convenience. And add a cylinder to the scene, but now we need to change the number of vertices to 16. Reduce the cylinders in size and in edit mode, select the upper and lower round faces and apply insert to them, after which we need to stretch them along the Z-axis. Now we apply insert again to the lower face and pull the face up along the Z-axis. We need to make an element of the cap that closes the bottle. Add a cylinder to the scene. We embed it in size and reduce the lower round face by half. We got a kind of cone. And further, in edit mode we need to add edge loops to strengthen the topology. To do this we use insert for the round faces and Ctrl R for the side faces. Now we are ready to apply shade smooth and subdivision surface to this object. And so now we are ready to combine the two objects that we have just created. And we need to join them with the third part of the cap. We pull these two objects down along the z-axis, so that they intersect with the third part. And now when they intersect, we see where we need to make a response hole. We go into edit mode and extrude face down along the z-axis. Also do not forget to add edge loops to strengthen the topology. Now select the top face on the top cap and press Ctrl+ until we select the outer edges we need, after which we can apply Ctrl+B to them and make a bevel. At this point the cap is ready, then we need to rename all the objects that we have made. This is necessary for ease of work. Well, and to avoid confusion since the final scene will have quite a few objects. Well, and in the end we place all the elements of the perfume bottle in a separate collection by pressing the M button. Now we can move on to making materials. To begin with, let's add the floor where the bottle will stand and give it a material. It will be dark blue. For more clarity, let's go to render mode and I'll connect the HDRI map with lighting half forest and half sky. I'll check the box next to denoising in the viewport. And so we return to the floor material. Let's add a noise texture, connect it to roughness and press Ctrl+T to add texture coordinates and mapping. To do this, you must have the Wrangler add-on enabled. Base color, select dark blue. And after the noise texture, add color ramp to control the roughness. Black slider, move it a little to the right. Next, we can move on to making glass for the bottle. Add a new material and rename it. Now we need to add nodes glossy, transparent, layer weight and mix shader to combine all this. Roughness is set to almost 0. Next, the water material, add a new material and rename it. Reduce roughness to almost 0, and increase transmission to 1. And also we need to change the refractive index to 1.3. We make the bottleneck dark red, raise the metallic color almost to 1, and lower the roughness almost to 0. We give the upper part of the cap with edges the material of the bottle, and we give the conical element the material of the neck chrome. Next we need to fix one thing. The fact is that our bottle is 4.5 m high, and in this case physics and lighting will not work correctly. Therefore we need to place the 3D cursor in the center of the scene, transform pivot point set to 3D cursor. Now press A to select all objects and reduce them to the size when the bottle is 25 centimeters. This is already more like the truth. Then we return the transform pivot point to the origins individual. Next we can continue working with materials. Add a new material for the tube, reduce the roughness to almost 0, and increase the transmission to 1. Next we need to assign the material to the cylinder adapters that are near the neck. Find the materials of red chrome, copy it and rename it. Then change the color to light gray. We also assign the newly created material to the second cylinder. For now, the work with materials is finished. Let's move on to filling the scene. The Add-in Blender kit and the library that I have will help me with this. I wrote the word flower in the search and downloaded the models that suit me or that I can use. It may be that the external flower suits me but the color does not. Therefore, I will have to modify it in the shader. That is, my idea is that in the background there will be a bush with roses and on the sides of the bottle there will be flowers. On the floor there will be grass, stones and flowers. And now you can see how easy it is to add objects from the library of assets. That is, I recommend everyone to think about what objects you need for work and stock up on libraries of assets of a certain direction. At this point you can see that I don't need the whole vase of flowers, I use only one flower from it. I'll just duplicate it in the future if necessary. And you can also see how I have a divided screen for work, that on the left side of the screen I have the render mode turned on and I see the frame in front of my eyes all the time, and thus I place the flowers in the place I need. With the second bouquet of flowers I do the same, I need only one flower from it. That is, in the editing mode, I select the extreme face and press Ctrl+ until a sufficient number of faces are selected. Then press the P button on the keyboard and select by selection, thus separating the flower from the bouquet. We can see this flower is red, but I need it to be white. Therefore, we go to the shader, delete the curve RGB node, and connect the image texture directly. Now we have to step by step arrange the white flowers in the scene in such a way as to create a composition. One flower should be larger, the other should be smaller. One of them should be behind the bottle, the other should be nearby. That is, by trial and error, we find the result we need. Now let's turn to my library assets. I want to use the stones that I have. But the thing is that they are quite large. So we go into the editing mode, with the transformation pivot point to individual origins enabled, select all the stones and reduce their diameter, in order to place them on the floor. I also want to fill the scene a little from the left and right edges, as if in the center there is a barely visible path to the bottle. So once again we turn to the library A from this and choose an unknown type of flower. In the same way I add grass, I add leaves. That is, I fill the scene step by step. Well, when we are more or less sure that the scene is ready, we can move on to lighting. First, I add spotlight. I set it on top of the right and point it at the bottle. I adjust the light intensity and beam shape. Let's set the depth of field on the camera for better control over the scene. To do this, we add empty, place it as close to the bottle as possible. We set this empty as an object in the camera. I set the f-stop to 2 for now. Then I came up with such a thing that I would have butterflies flying inside the bottle of perfume. So again we turn to Blender Kit. In the search line of the request I write the word butterfly. I download it. And then I reduce it in size, place it inside the bottle and duplicate it several times, simultaneously turning it in different directions so that they look different. And also I want to add magic dust to these butterflies. So I used a cube. I assigned the principal volume material with a very small amount of fog, density 0.05. And also in order to add the magic effect I used my system of geometric nodes with which I usually create dust. But this time I assigned it a different material that glows. I have a link to Patreon if someone wants to buy and support the channel and me as an author in this way. If you want a free option, then I have a video on the channel how I create this system of geometric nodes. Also, you can see now that I changed the color of the glass and water in the bottle to a slightly bluish, because it seemed to me that just transparent glass would be boring. Also, I want to add another cube with a very small amount of fog. This technique allows you to make the scene voluminous and more saturated. This density value is not final yet, I will edit it until the end of the scene. Next, I want to copy the system of geometric nodes and increase its size and make dust that flies around the bottle. I use the combination Shift-D, and then I need to move it to another collection. This is necessary for light linking, more on that later. On the right side of the screen, you can see how many settings this system of geometric nodes has. You can increase the radius, scale, minimum size, maximum size, and there is also the ability to animate these values. So, okay, next I want to show you how you can apply a logo to a surface using a mask. In editing mode, select all faces and press U to do unwrap. In the left window, I will switch to UV mode. Then we can see the UV map. If we select the faces on which we want to apply the logo, we will be able to see them on the UV map. Then press UV and find Export UV Layout in SAM. Gave us the path to save the image. Now in Photoshop, open the images you just saved. On those faces where the logo should be, write the name in black letters, or place the logo image in black. Make sure your logo is in the right place and is the right size. Next, add a completely white layer. Move the layer with the logo to the top. Then merge the two upper layers using the Ctrl-E combination. Then use the Ctrl-I combination to invert the image. This is how we made a mask. Save the image. We return to the shader and we need to do the following. Duplicate the node mix shader and place it next to it. Add the node principal BSDF and connect it to the lower slot. With its help we can customize the color of the logo. Now we can add the image texture and press Ctrl-T on it. Open the black and white mask we just created and connect the image texture as a factor. Now if we select the faces on which the logo should be located, we need to rotate them by 90 degrees and stretch them a little along the Y-axis. And thus we set up the display of the logo. I also want to show you how many lights I used and where I placed them. I want to start with the point light which I placed behind the perfume bottle to highlight the bottle's contours. I placed the next point light inside the bottle to shine on the objects that are inside, but not on the bottle wall, not on the glass. For this I used a function such as light linking. But for this, the objects on which the point light will shine must be in a separate collection. I also added two light areas in front of the bottle and behind. And also assigned the emission material to two systems and geometric nodes. For the world material, I left the dry map that was at the beginning, only lowered its strength value to 0.3. So at this point I can push render image. And after rendering I got this image, but there are things that we can do to enhance it. And so in order to do this we go to Photoshop. We load our image from the render and the first thing I do is copy first layer, so that I can always go back to the beginning. Then I go to the filter and then select Camera Raw. The first thing we do is set the white balance. I set it to auto, it usually works quite well. I set the exposure to -0.1. I set the contrast to +5. I set the highlights to +6. I set shadows to -4. I set the texture to +6. And I set the clarity to +8. I set the color to +30, and the saturation to +2. Next we go to the Effects tab and set the black vignette to -30. Now we go to the Optics tab, vignette to -14. And distortion to -5. Now we can click OK. Great, let's move on. Add a new layer. Click on it twice and remove the check mark opposite the layer figure transparency. Then switch the layer to color dodge mode. Select a soft brush, perhaps even need to reduce the pressure, lightly press in the place where we want to create a glow. Now we can apply a Gaussian blur to this layer. And now we can control the brightness of this layer with opacity, or we can, on the contrary, increase the brightness with duplicated this layer by pressing Ctrl J. I decided to add an effect like sunbeams are breaking out from inside a perfume bottle. So we copy the image twice using the +J combination. We select the second layer and go to the image, then correction, then threshold. By default, it is set to 128, that is what we need. We press OK, we switch the layer to screen mode, then we apply the radial blur filter to this layer, we apply the best quality, set quantity to maximum, method is linear, now we set the place from which the rays will descend and I press OK. OK, now we need to add an adjustment layer hue/saturation. We put a tick opposite to tint and set the value to 43. 38 and 0. We add a mask before the layer we are working on, and now with the help of a black and white brush we can show or hide the image of the sunbeams. Now we turn on the second layer, everything is exactly the same with it, except that the threshold needs to be set to 180. And finally, with the help of masks and opacity, we set up the result we need. So, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, please don't forget to check the channel subscription, like and comment. And as always, learn the hotkeys, they will make your life easier. Take your time, try different settings, and pray for Ukraine. Thanks, bye.